is an awakening of someone in that age group. And here's another quote that I'll read you, really one of despair, which I find to be really, really troubling and sad. I rejected my Korean identity completely when I was young because I was embarrassed and ashamed to be Asian. It wasn't until college that I became interested in the culture. I ended up living in Korea for a few years. The rise in anti-Asian sentiment made me feel ashamed, yet again. If I were just white, life would be so much easier. I feel so resentful sometimes of my circumstances. Why couldn't I just have stayed in Korea? I mean, that really is a pretty, troubling, comment by any measure. And there are a couple more quotes here, and basically there's a feeling of insecurity, like, do I belong here? So there's another quote from a Vietnamese woman says, I need to carry my passport around now to make sure that people know that I belong here. But then she says, but maybe I'm carrying the passport to prove to myself that I really belong here. And that, is also very troubling. So when we look at all these situations, the major question is, what can we do about it? And there's a lot that can be done at both the macro level and individual level. And as they say, this is a little bit like preaching to the choir, but since you are here, the fact that you're here, we're having these discussions, is really part of this effort to recognize and understand what more can be done to push back against anti-Asian hate incidents. Because hate is not prosecutable. I can hate someone, but it's not a crime. I can call someone a name, and that's not a crime. It's the exercise of my First Amendment rights. So the question is, what can we do about it? So I would implore you, if you go on the Stop AAPI Hate, they actually have some very useful toolkits and suggestions about 5 things to do if you are a victim of hate. And also there's some suggestions there on the website say 5 things to do if you witness a hate incident. So I won't go through these things with you at this time, but you can look at it if you can go online. The last thing that I would share with you before I open up is, okay, what can be done? Well, there's organizing that can be done at the macro level. There are things that can be done, meaning the federal level, which was done when President Biden signed the Hirono anti-Asian hate crime bill earlier this year that would prod the U.S. Department of Justice to be more vigorous, working with local police department to identify hate crimes. Through a lot of advocacy by CAA and its partners throughout the state, the governor approved $200 million in the state budget 2021 to address hate crimes. So the monies are being spent not only on agencies that are giving direct assistance to victims of hate incidents, but they're putting some emphasis on mental health services. I think we need to acknowledge that everyone has been stressed out by these incidents. I mean, we've all been stressed out by COVID, by these hate incidents, by politics. It's just been very, very stressful. And we should not be ashamed to say, we need some mental health assistance if that's the case. So it's good that the government is recognizing the need for that. And then the other thing that the bill is, the $200 million is going to be directed toward, is to build up cultural institutions within the Asian community, so that there's not this sense of shame, not knowing your history, not knowing where you come from. So some of you may have heard that, on the corner of Clay and Grant Avenue, that building right on the corner there, that's going to be the Center for Arts and Museum, because about 6 groups here in San Francisco got together, form a coalition, the Historical Society, Chinese Cultural Center, Chinese Affirmative Action, Angel Island Immigration Station Foundation, and a couple others came together, and they're going to create a Center for Arts and Music there, so that it will be an open situation there. So I think it's something that we can look forward to, that will be built up. And then the Attorney General finally said, Rob Bonta, who was appointed by Newsom when he appointed the previous Attorney General, when the previous Attorney General got his appointment as Secretary of Health and Human Services, Rob Bonta from the East Bay, a Filipino, he set up a racial justice bureau so that they could more carefully track these incidents, and they're hiring outreach workers, 5 throughout the state, which I think is a very good move. The last thing that I would mention is finally groups in the state was successful in getting the governor to approve an ethnic studies high school requirement for graduation that will take place in 2029. So this, I think, is a very positive step for all California students to know what their history is, about their roots, and not to be ashamed. So there's a lot to be done. There's a lot that you all can do in big ways, small ways. I really believe that, if you see situations, you speak out. I remember, just out in closing, one time when I was trying to get kind of refresh my mind, I went to this program at Golden Gate. It's like a grad program where I would study on the weekend, and the head of the teacher taught one of the courses there, and he really said something that was really racial stereotypical, and I called him out. I said, that's unacceptable. And I thought that, oh gosh, there goes my grade in this class. But it was interesting. At graduation, he acknowledged that I had said that, and he thanked me for calling him out. That was something that he learned, that he, So, there's a time and place for everything. But I really believe that we can all address hate in so many different ways. You could do it, within a church group. You could do it within like my wife belongs to a quilting group. You could do it in an exercise group. If comments or attitudes surface, find a way to talk about it or to raise concern. And I think that's what is so important, because I think when we do it, I think we feel better for it, because it is troublesome to have gone through what we have gone through. Even though I can say no one has said that to me directly, but you have enough friends and community members that you care about that it's happened to,